Let us give a look at some figures under the topic similarity. If we look at sum number 30, it is based on optical illusions, where figures 1 and 2 are white shaded shapes with white outlines inside another four-sided shape. If you see closely, they are another four-sided shapes, and the two largest shapes are outlined in different colors from one another. This square and this shape, they are different colors from one another. If we look at the figures on the right, the figures A, B, and D, the two larger shapes are of the same color here. The two larger shapes are of the same color here, and one is of different color, thus making C the odd one out and our correct answer for sum number 30. Moving on to figure 29. Here, the patterns may seem easy to work out but are hard to differentiate. If you take a closer look, you'll see that the patterns are a bit hard to differentiate. In figure 1 and 2, two identical shapes are lined up with the middle ones inverted. If you see, the middle ones here are inverted. And if we look at the figures in the right hand side, figure B and C, one of the shapes face the wrong way. If you see, one of the shapes here, this one and here, the first one faces the wrong way, and one of them are inverted as well, but then it makes no sense if one faces the wrong way. So, and in figure D, all face the same way, but then none of them are inverted, making A our correct answer. Okay, so moving on with question number 28. Here, if we look at the both figures, figure 1 and 2, here the larger shapes have another smaller shapes in them facing the horizontal way and are reflected horizontally as well. If we take a look at the figures A and D, they both have the smaller figures pointing towards the same direction. Therefore, they are not the answer that we are looking for. And box C has smaller shapes in the opposite positions, but the dotted ones are pointing the wrong way. So therefore, making C also not one of the answers, and making B, on the other hand, our right answer for this question. Moving on with our next question, that is question number 26, where in figures 1 and 2, we see the second shape is the reflected version of the first one. Here, if the first image is the dotted one, the second one is the solid outline. And if here it is the vice versa, if the first image is in solid outline, the second image is in dotted outline. So if we take a look at the figures on our right hand side, A has the correct outline and sizes, but the shapes are in the wrong place. So the shapes, the smaller shapes should have been in the position of the bigger shape. So therefore, A is not the answer that we are looking for. C has the two shapes outlined in the same way. One has to be solid and the other has to be in the dotted outline. But rather here, it is both the same. So C is not our answer as well. D has the outline and the reflection correct, but they are not of different sizes. If you look at figures 1 and 2, these both are of different sizes from each other, and the sizes in D do not differ at all. So therefore, making B our correct answer here as well. Moving on to question number 24, where in figures 1 and 2, the shape is one's rotated copy of the first shape with the corners made round. They are the rotated version. They are just of the opposite in both the directions. If this one is vertical, the second box is horizontal, and similarly if this one is horizontal and the second shape is vertical. So therefore, if we give a look at it here, if we give a look at the answers here, B is not rotated properly, C is not reflected properly, and D has two identical shapes, which is completely wrong, making all these three unfit for our correct answer, and therefore A is the right option here. If we move on to the next question, question number 21, that is we are looking here. In figures 1 and 2, the top shapes have twice as many lines as the bottom shape. If you look at the figures closely, if you look at figure 1, there are 4 lines made here, and it is twice, the above shape is twice than that of the bottom shape, which is 8 lines here. And similarly in figure 2, if this is made up of 3 lines, and here we are having a hexagon made up of 6 lines. So therefore we have understood what we exactly have to do here. We just need to find the answer which has the bottom shape, in which the above shape has twice many lines as that of the bottom shape. So A is definitely not our answer. By looking at it, we can say that. C is not our answer as well, because this is a pentagon and here we are having a triangle with 3 lines. So no. And D almost works, but the shapes are in the wrong order. The smaller one should be here in place of the bigger one. So D is not our answer as well, making B the correct option here. Moving on to question number 19, where if we see, the bigger shapes have 2 smaller shapes with lesser number of lines in them. If this is a pentagon here, we have a triangle and a 4-line shaped inside of it. So the smaller shapes are to have lesser lines than that of the bigger shape. And similarly it is the same here in figure 2. So if we give a look at the boxes on our right hand side, A and B are definitely not the correct fit, and D also not, because D has more number of smaller shapes inside it, whereas the correct option will be a shape that has lesser number of lines inside it plus lesser number of shapes as well, which is maximum 2. So therefore D is also not our answer, making C the correct choice here. Moving on to question number 17. Here in both the figures, the 2 shapes that make up figure 1 and 2 are reflections of each other vertically in mirror image. If you look, they are just vertically opposite to each other, vertically in the mirror image. So if we identify the correct answer here, A is not the answer we are looking for, because it has 2 shapes, but it is not a reflection, so no. C has the shapes correct but are reflected horizontally and not vertically. And D, it is not a question itself, because the shapes are not the same. So D is completely not our answer, making B the correct answer here as well. Moving on to the next topic, that is reflection. Here, if we see question number 9, this is the figure and we need to find its correct reflection from the right hand side. Number A, option A is a rotated reflection. So no, we are not looking for a rotated reflection. C is altogether another image. So definitely a no to C. And D is the anti-clockwise rotation of the figure here. So no, it is a no to D as well, making B our correct option. Moving on to the next figure under the topic reflection, that is question number 5. Here, if we see, there are 3 shapes given with square, where square is shaded, the triangle is behind the circle. So A is not our answer because the odd shape is shaded, not reflected, and the incorrect shading as written here. So A is not the answer we are looking for. B is the downward reflection, and the circle and the square have swapped places here. If you see, the square is in the 3rd position or the 1st position, but here it is just the opposite. So it has swapped places, therefore making it the wrong answer. Option C are not reflected and the positions are incorrect as well, as if we give a closer look here, the triangle is behind the circle as mentioned earlier, and here the triangle is in front of the circle. So therefore B and C are not the answer that we are looking for, making D our correct answer. Let us look at question number 4. On looking at this question, it might seem that all the figures are alike here, but let me tell you that here we are looking at reflection and not similarity. So yes, option A for reflection is not the correct option because it is 90-degree anti-clockwise rotation. Option B is a 180-degree rotation, so therefore no, it is also not the correct answer. And D is a downward reflection, which we do not want, making C the correct answer here. Moving on to number 3. Number 3 is a wave with 2 lines and a dot here. Option A is not the correct one here because it is 180-degree rotation. So no, we are looking for reflections. B is definitely not the correct answer because the second line is not involved here. So no, we cut out the B as well. C has not been reflected correctly and the positions of the elements here are wrong. So yes, it is not one of our options as well, making D the right choice. Next, we will be taking a look at question number 2, which may seem a bit confusing, but it is not. On reflecting these and matching them with the image on the left, we see that option A is not that we are looking for because it is a 135-degree clockwise rotation. So no. C is a downward reflection, so therefore C is also not we are looking for, and D is a 45-degree anti-clockwise rotation. So it is a big no to this. Therefore making B a right choice for this question. Moving on to the last question of the paper, that is our question number 1. Here, if we take a look at question number 1, what is the figure here? It is an arrow facing towards the left hand side with a gray triangle which is also facing towards the same direction. So let us look at its reflections, that which one matches it. A does not matches it because it is an anti-clockwise rotation, so no. In B, the gray triangle has not been reflected, so no, therefore B is also not the correct option. In D, The arrow has not been reflected. The arrow here has not been reflected. That is the reason why D is also not our correct answer, making C the right option here.